the GDPR is what you can call an EU law that basically governs how you should manage personal data. That's a big one, and I could talk about this for hours. But basically, companies have the responsibility to manage personal data in accordance with the principles stated in the GDPR. And that is, for example, ensuring that you're allowed to collect the data, that you're not storing it for too long, and that you're being transparent about what you're doing with the data. If the former one was a big one, this is more of a tricky one, because the GDPR doesn't actually state time periods. It all depends on what you're using the data for, as in your purpose, because you shouldn't store data for longer than necessary to fulfill that purpose. Okay, so the GDPR states that you cannot process personal data unless you have a legal ground. And those legal grounds are listed in the GDPR, and one of those is consent. A privacy policy or a privacy notice, on the other hand, is where you inform, for example, candidates about what data you're collecting, what you're using it for, and also all the legal grounds that you have. That's a really good question, especially because, at least in the past, there have been quite few mixed interpretations and some misconceptions about consent. For example, that you would need consent for everything that you do with personal data. But to use consent, you can only use it for a specific purpose that you've informed the individuals of and that they've actively agreed on. And what that means in practice is that the most commonly used way to collect consent is through a yes or no question. But remember, it needs to be specific, so you cannot simply state, "Can we use your personal data?" You need to elaborate. So for example, are you okay with us storing your application in order to contact you for future job openings at our firm? And remember, a no is a no here. There are several, but I would say that at least two are of special importance here. One is the right to access to their data, which means giving them access to the personal data that you're keeping about them. And the other one is the candidate's right to, under certain conditions, deletion of their data. Actually, the GDPR in itself is the same and applicable in all EU member states. Member states have been able to set their own detailed rules in some specific areas, such as at what age a child can give their consent or how to manage social security numbers. But it's important to note that even though the GDPR is the same, national legislation, such as labor laws, can actually affect for how long you should or can store personal data. Well, we have sanctions that can be high, but in my opinion, it's not only a monetary issue. Privacy is a trust business, and if you do not manage personal data correctly, it can affect your reputation and thus how candidates view your company. And as we all know, your employer brand is crucial for attracting top talent. One way to facilitate your work is through your applicant tracking system. For example, at Hedlund, we focus on building GDPR features in order to make your compliance work easier and more efficient. If you're interested in learning more about the GDPR and how Hedlund can help, download our guide for some quick but hands-on tips.